financial literacy is something you should learn at a very early age. Like while you have the capacity in your free time, like learn as much as you can. I always made a priority to surround myself with people who are successful, that were doing well, that, if it's other real estate agents or investors, learning where they started.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of More Than a Sale, where it's not just about the successes, it's about the hardships, the struggles, the pain, the sorrows to get to where you are. And today we have one such individual,
Kristina Kazemi.
Kristina Kazemi.
She is a social media sensation. She is selling real estate and award-winning broker with Forest Hill Real Estate.
Kristina Kazemi. Welcome to More Than a Sale.
Thank you. Excited to be here. To be honest, at a very young age, I've always just loved real estate, and really taking the time to share, my experiences, shifting the mindset from selling to them to helping them and being a part of their journey. Hey, if you have any questions about this, I'm happy to help. Let's try to build a relationship first and see if this is going to be a meaningful business relationship to continue.
You have been an active individual on social media, and your videos are going viral. You're getting tons of views. Tell me, do your videos drive a lot of lead generation for you?
Yeah, so I would say my videos have generated a lot of leads, and the way that I generate my videos, I kind of reverse engineer of, what are the type of clients that I want? What are the properties that they're looking at? What are the kind of investments that they want to make? And I kind of piece together what my ideal client looks like, and then make videos to be okay, this is what they would want to live in.
And what is that ideal client of yours?
So my ideal client is, somebody that is either an end user, obviously, or an investor. Obviously, I'm going to start making more content around different segments, but loft specifically is something that I've always had an interest in, and I think after seeing so many different properties in Toronto, those are ones that every time I go, I see a loft and it's unique. I'm I actually just get very excited about it. In a perfect world, right, my ideal clients are someone that has that same passion for unique properties that aren't the same cookie cutter condos, and ones that are still a great investment, because it's not just, the lofts market is, I would say, very different from the normal condo market. It's a little bit more niche. So being able to kind of attract those same kind of buyers that are looking for something a little bit more.
And how's the inventory on the lofts? Do you find that inventory is scarce when it comes to really good looking lofts? Do you think builders actually put a lot of lofts together? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I would say the sweet spot for the loft market is these older ones, because they're historic buildings. I know there's a lot of new loft style buildings out there, but they're just not the same. They don't have the same uniqueness to them, the same finishes, historic pieces that they couldn't take apart. So I think those are always the big selling factors for the true loft lovers that they go crazy about.
You and I were chatting, and you said you had a big passion for real estate. You love architecture. How'd you fall in the field of real estate and the world of real estate?
To be honest, at a very young age, I've always just loved real estate. I grew up in just a very normal household, and I loved watching, I'm sure as most people, I think MTV Cribs is kind of what started everyone's excitement about getting a real estate license. But that was just something I'd always love as a kid.
I still think that's the best show of all.
It's the best show, and it needs to come back immediately. I watch Architecture Digest now on YouTube, but it's not the same.
It's not the same.
So that kind of initiated my passion at an early age. And I was I would love, this is where I see myself. This is what I want for myself. So it's just really kind of manifesting that future for myself at a very young age. And how I kind of got into real estate, it's really a long,
break it down for our viewers and our audience. Yeah. So you're in school. You said you were telling me you were in school.
Yes.
And you're let me just do this as a secondary thing while I'm still studying and start from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's basically what happened. I knew I wanted to get in the world of real estate. I wasn't quite sure what. I don't know if it was architecture, interior design, being a real estate agent. There's so many different aspects in the world of real estate that I couldn't quite pick at first. I was you know what? I'm just going to go get my business degree in marketing. Either way, it's going to contribute to whatever path that I choose, and take my real estate license on the side as another course. So I wanted to make sure that when I graduated, I had that license ready to go. What really initiated that process, funny enough, is I remember I was in first year university. I'll be honest, I would say growing up, in a single family household, like I'm an only child, I always made a priority to surround myself with people who are successful, that were doing well, that I wanted to be like when I was older. And kind of the common factor between all these people that we're meeting was owning real estate. So that was kind of imprinted in my path like early on. I'm like, I need to get something as soon as I could.
Yeah.
An opportunity kind of fell in front of my plate, like so impulsive. Like I really knew nothing about this, but it was an opportunity for like a pre-construction project.
Got it.
And again, I was, not working. I'm still in school. I've had worked 2 jobs and had some money saved. But in my head, just kind of doing these calculations, how this would make sense for me and how this could, kind of kickstart that path in my real estate license. Or my real estate career. I just thought that having this experience at an early age would help me kind of have the ability to start that with a few experiences under my belt, as opposed to just coming.
Break down your experience. So you'd bought this pre-construction condo, you made an impulsive decision, and what attracted you towards this pre-construction? What was your experience like working with a realtor? Now that you're a realtor yourself, share that experience of working with that individual.
I would say and again, this kind of translates back to my desire to get back in real estate, because the real estate agent that I was working with, just really said, hey, this was like an opportunity here. I didn't really get much information. So again, being new in the world of real estate, I maybe took I want to say 1 day to just do some research. It was in an area that I knew nothing about. Like this was Woodbridge at the time. And I was like, I'm from Oakville. I've never been in Woodbridge in my life. But I see there's city development plans. There's going to be transportation that's going to take you downtown. There's a lot of new amenities and commercial things that are opening up in the area that's going to attract a lot of people to be here. So it really was kind of those few points that I was like, okay, I think this makes sense. Like, let's just go for it. I think with that experience, because I didn't necessarily have a guiding factor with my real estate agent to walk me through that process, everything was a learning curve myself, and I really had to take it upon myself to connect with lawyers, learn about what comes with buying a pre-construction, what to expect, what do I need to look out for. I really had to learn and make those mistakes along the way.
So what was the mistake you made with this purchase? What is the name of this project?
The name of this project was Ravines on Islington, so it was townhouses.
Wonderful. Did it close?
It did close.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, I would say the mistakes that I made along the way was maybe trying to do everything myself and not knowing who I can trust that's going to give me true information, right? Being someone that's worked in sales as well, everyone's trying to sell you something. I always make sure I look for, what's the silver lining here? What's the caveat? And maybe that mentality just made me take everything upon myself. So I tried to learn.
And did you ask a realtor for these questions that you were stuck on? Like, hey, what would these fees be? What would that be? What would this be? Did you ask them these, and were they helpful towards it?
I did, but I was mostly directed to a lawyer. So I wasn't really getting much.
So basically the realtor made the sale, out of the picture, go talk to a lawyer.
Yeah, so out of the picture, I was like, okay.
How do you feel about that? How do you think buyers really feel about that when they have an experience with an agent? And this is what I hear from buyers majority of the time, that my agent didn't do anything, you know? And why do you feel that buyers feel like that? My agent didn't do anything.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of real estate agents, I get it. It's tough out here as an agent, right? When you're running on full commission, and you don't know when your next paycheck is going to be, sometimes the way you operate your business, you might reflect that on your clients and put that pressure on your clients. And I think that's ultimately the wrong way of doing business. And unfortunately, I see and I hear from it all the time. And as a real estate agent, it really puts a bad rep in the industry because so many people kind of operate like that. I think really it's the way that I do business is I put the relationship first. And I know that, if you want to grow a sustainable business, getting that sale once and never hearing from that customer again or that client because they didn't have a good experience for you is not going to be a fruitful relationship, one for them or for your business. So I always make sure that I operate in a way I'm putting the longevity of the client's best interests first and really taking the time to share, my experiences and not to make the same mistakes. And I think that also comes with just being brutally honest and transparent and just kind of shifting the mindset from selling to them to helping them and being a part of their journey.
Can you share an experience that you had with the buyer where you did those things and the buyer was first time buyer or had a lot of questions and how you helped them navigate through the sales journey?
I would say for one of my first time buyers, especially when someone's first getting into the market, there's so many emotions involved, right? There's like so many things that you want to consider between like what you need and then also like the emotions that you feel when you're in a competitive situation, losing out on properties, like kind of playing the game with like listing agents, right? There's a lot of emotional energy that's invested into it. So as a realtor, it's one, you're not only just finding the perfect house for them, but also trying to balance a logical perspective with the emotional perspective of buying a house. And I think that's where I do well in navigating the journey is being, look, I know you love this house. Is this a logical decision? Maybe not. Like there's times where, I've kind of have to argue with my clients where they're like, I want to pay this much and like I love this. I just want to get it done. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Like it's not worth that much. Like I know you're like tired, but and like, yes, I know in my head, I could get this deal done, take whatever he wants to spend and go in on it. But I want my client to feel like he won after the deal. Like I want him to feel fulfilled, that he has some extra money saved that he can put into the place. So I often actually find myself in these battles where and it seems like a great problem to have where like my clients want to pay more, but I kind of put the logical hat on and be like, I don't think this is, maybe the best investment. I don't think we should go this high. And I think there's a better way of doing this.
As a young professional, I want to ask you, what would be a message to other young professionals? Now, you and I were chatting and we were talking about financials and we were talking about saving money and how you've always had, multitude of jobs simultaneously and you would save and save and save. Talk to me a little bit about that and the importance of why you did that and why other professionals should do the same.
Yeah, well, I think right off the bat, financial literacy is something you should learn at a very early age. That's kind of what my recommendation would be when you have the capacity to learn and ingest new information. As you get older, you're working, there's so many different priorities that come into play that it can be hard to really take the time to put aside to like learning other things like financial literacy, investing. My recommendation is like while you have the capacity in your free time, like learn as much as you can, learn from people that are, successful.
Let's break down your process. How do you learn? What do you take in? What's a tip that you can share with our audience and our listeners? What would you say?
Like what worked for me, it's through conversations with people and it's through like my network, people that I know, if it's other real estate agents or investors, learning where they started.
Yeah. With learning from other individuals, what are things you picked up along the way of your journey that you have implemented in your business? Share that with our listeners.
I'm sure people hear this all the time, but I would say it's the importance of having a routine and a very structured routine. And that's something that I took away just in terms of habits from successful people. They're so disciplined in their routine. If there's an area where they need to learn more about and it's real estate, like that's a non-negotiable that's in their calendar. And being able to really follow through that and kind of cast a vote of who you want to be, it's making those habits. So I think outside of the actual investing standpoint, it's also the behaviors of what successful people look like they need to implement.
From university and selling real estate at the same time, how difficult was that? Because you were doing simultaneously both. You were studying and you had your license, I presume.
I'll be honest, out of university when I first started, because I got my license pretty much as soon as I graduated. And kind of going back to this pre-construction property, I had 2 years to close after I graduated, and I knew in order to close, I had to make a certain amount of money. Otherwise, I'm not closing. Like, I'm screwed. In my head, this gave me like a motivation. I'm like, okay, I have no choice, but like, I need to like work my ass off in these 2 years. So that was kind of the driving factor of what that looked like after school. The first thing that I did while working real estate is I worked a sales job. It was like a sales marketing company where it was a lot of cold calling. It was cold emails, like you're on the phone all day. And it was a lot of work and you really had to hustle. But the rewards were like, it's unlimited. Like you can make how much you put in. So doing that plus real estate on the side really imprinted in my brain early on that no matter what you do, you're going to get how much you put in. I managed both of those jobs on the side because I knew it was like, I need to be making X amount to close on this property, reversed engineered what I need to be making on a monthly basis to like ensure that I can get to what I need to close and not be disowned by my mom.
Yeah.
it was hard, but I think if you, in the early stages of a real estate career, if you can really just push yourself intensely, once you grasp it, you grasp it. But you really have to have that mindset and that mentality that, failure is not an option. Whatever goal you're going to achieve, like, you need to break it down, and just thinking about that's not going to happen, you need to have a plan.
Who are some of the mentors that you've had in your life that had a significant impact in your business?
In my business, to be honest, I would say in the early stages, as much as I was talking and meeting to a lot of people who are successful, a lot of things were piecing them together and kind of making my own path from the things that I've learned. I never necessarily had a mentor per se.
Is there anyone you were inspired from, or is there anyone that you looked up to or you got a chance to learn and watch in action?
Not real estate related, but I would say the one person who I've learned from the most in terms of my ethic would be my mom. Really just seeing her work day in, day out. A single mother, I know, mothers out there are another level of hard work and unconditional love. Like, as a single Filipino mother, I'm sure Filipinos know, they just don't stop working. That's something that I've, watched growing up my whole life, and her habits, her dedication to her work, along with her dedication and sacrifices that she's made to her family, other people, is what's driven me to be as motivated as she is. While it's not real estate related, I think I've always looked up to her in that sense and really wanted to be like her and show her that, I see your hard work and I'm replicating it, and I want to give the same sacrifices that you've made for me back. So,
would you say she's proud of you?
I would hope so. She tells me she's proud of me all the time.
When watching your mom work incredibly hard, have multiple jobs, sacrifice her time for your upbringing, what was that like for you? I know you spoke about how it shaped you as a person, but share with me a little bit of the struggles along the way. What was childhood like for you?
Yeah, so I would say my childhood, in terms like the relationship with my family, was very loving. I had a very beautiful childhood. As an only child, got a lot of love and attention from both my parents. At an early age, my dad unfortunately passed away from cancer. During those times and during that kind of period of that happening and going through treatment, my mom really had to step the role of being the caregiver to my father and also the provider to the family. So I think that also, at a young age, that kind of learned me to be more self-sufficient, independent, and not have to rely on anyone, because I know that there's other priorities that come before me than my attention, my needs.
How old were you then?
When my dad passed away, I was 13.
When you found out, did you know for a long time that he had cancer? Were you able to comprehend it? I mean, everyone operates a little bit differently at that period of time. So I don't know what you must have been going through. Were you able to comprehend it? Was it just kicking in? Kind of share with me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I knew for a couple years. Obviously, the process of treatments, he was coming in and out of cancer. It wasn't something that was a shock to me, and I think at a young age, I learned how to be mentally resilient because I kind of knew what was coming. Obviously, that wasn't easy growing up with, but it did just kind of give me the chance to learn a lot about what love looks like at a young age. I know this is off real estate, but what it looks like to unconditionally love someone and love in my family, or how it was brought up is that it was through sacrifice. So that's something that was displayed by my mom and my family members. Learning that kind of early on taught me how to be more independent and work for myself to make sure everyone in the family is taken care of too.
If you could tell your father one thing right now, what would you say to him?
I would just say, I hope he's proud, and I hope that I couldn't necessarily fill his role in the family. I tried my best that I could to make my mom feel supported and feel that she has, a backbone. It's not easy to operate life without partnership. And I just hope that I was able to help fill that void in my family.
I'm proud of you.
Aw.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. I was not expected to get that deep.
Look, this is more than a sale, and this is what makes us. You know, all of us have our own pains and sorrows that we experience along the way, and it's difficult to talk about it. It's difficult to share it. It makes us who we are at the end of the day. All of us, one way or the other, like I was telling you earlier, there's a mask that we all have that we put on, and that's our mask that, you know, carry on with the day. But as soon as that day is over and you're all alone by yourself and that mask comes off, feel those emotions, you feel the pains, you feel the sorrows, and you feel sometimes an emptiness, and that's life. And circling back to the topic of real estate, your videos, you've been doing an incredible job with all the videos that you've been making. I want you to share with our listeners and our viewers, what's your strategy when you're making these videos? What do you do to keep everyone engaged? How do you like to make the videos? What's your process of making videos? Kind of break that down.
Yeah, so I think it kind of differs every time. But I would say in terms like the content and the luxury listings, you know, there's so many analytics that you can look and see what people respond to. So I really try to curate, and every video that I do, I see what the feedback was, what worked well. I can see that people are very engaged by price points. Those are things that, you know, work really well that I've seen. People want to know like what you can get at certain price points. Because it's one thing to, you know, hear about stats, to hear about what average prices are online, like physically see, you know, what does that look like? What are you actually getting? I think that's something that a lot of people engage with really well. So I would say that's kind of the foundation of the content that I try to produce.
Amazing. When you have inbound inquiries from your videos and the reels that you post, what would you say is a strategy that you use for follow-up, and how do you sort of move from there from our listeners?
Yeah, so I think one thing to keep in mind as well, especially as a female when you're making content, you have to be so selective with who you work with, and also just be mindful that, you know, I'm not the only agent that's putting content out there. There's a lot of agents that are putting content, and you really want to qualify, you know, if someone's, you know, wasting your time or maybe reaching out for the, like, with the wrong intentions. So I think the qualification process is key. And what that looks like is I always start with a phone call or a Zoom call before meeting anybody in person, especially if you don't know them and you don't have a referral or someone that can back this person's legitimacy. So that's always how I qualify first. And, you know, you can kind of use your intuition to see if things are potential for a business relationship and if things can progress to next steps. But I think that qualification piece is so important, and just engaging with them. If somebody has a question, usually the first thing I do is, you know, reach out and let them know, hey, if you have any questions about this, I'm happy to help, as opposed to pushing like, let's go see this property today. Like, no, like before, you know, we go see anything, like let's try to build a relationship first and see if this is going to be a meaningful business relationship to continue.
You know, you're not the only one said that. I hear it all the time. I hear it from agents in my office. I hear it from there. It's like, Ron, you know, a lot of tire kickers, a lot of waste of time on social media, and you know, they want to meet, they want to talk, but it's never about real estate or anything of that sort. So it's good that you're using those principles for pre-qualification. Are there any funny instances and stories I think you were telling me interesting to share when you were doing your showings or when you went on your appointments? Kind of tell our viewers and our listeners.
Yeah, so I have a pretty funny story. Yeah. So usually for the most part, 'cause after I kind of go through that qualification process, you know, I talk to them on the phone, see if they're legit. I had a situation where somebody had reached out to me on realtor.ca and was just like, hey, you know, I want to sell my loft. And like usually when you get emails like that, you're like, okay, what's the catch? Like nobody just says that, you know, this is kind of too good to be true.
Yeah. Or a gift from God. Yeah.
Yeah, a gift from God. I mean, sometimes that happens, don't get me wrong, but anytime that happens, I'm like, okay, like let's not get too optimistic. Let's break this down and see what this is all about. Yeah. Just kind of looking, I'm like, the first thing I do, like, what are the red flags here? So the first red flags was the email was, I don't want to say what the email was, but the email was, let's just say like timmy@msn.com. Just like no information, no last name, like whatsoever. Yeah. You know, so I'm like, okay, like Timmy has requested some information. Sure, I'm gonna reach out to Timmy and see what he has to say. And like the response back to the email, like you can see the email signature, was just, it was like a link to a website that didn't work. Like, it was just a very like pixelated image, like really like no information from this. Like it just like, yeah, it just screams sketch from like every aspect. Yeah. So anyways, I'm like, okay, intuitively, like let's just keep this going and see what Timmy's about. Yeah. I get on the call with him, and he tells me a situation. He's like, hey, I want to list my loft. I feel like not a lot of people know how to advertise lofts, and it's a very unique property, and I wanted, something that's going to set my place apart. So all these things kind of seem legit. And I wanted to verify. He's like, okay, come take a look at my home. I was like, okay, can you send some pictures first before I go? Or can you send me the address? Like, I want to make sure, I didn't say this to him, but I want to make sure that the name matches the listing that he's talking about to just kind of prove his legitimacy. So I asked for an ID. And he's like, no, I don't really trust giving my ID online. Like, I would prefer to show it in person. So it was just like, red flag after red flag. I'm like, this seems so sketchy. I don't know why. Intuitively, I was like, what could possibly go
what could
wrong?
go? You're still entertaining.
Besides everything.
Yeah, you're
But
just
like,
calculating. Okay, great. It's a loft. It's a listing. I could, let's go explore this.
yeah, like besides all the red flags, I'm like, what could possibly go wrong here? So I asked my broker, I'm like, hey, like I got this inquiry, not really sure what to do with it. Can you maybe come with me to this showing and just for support, like just to make sure everything's okay. He ended up being busy, but I was like, okay, let me just ask a friend or something to come with me. Like, so I called my friend. I'm like, hey, like, can you pretend to be my broker for a second and just like come with me to this listing appointment? Come with me to this listing appointment. This is how it's going to go. I'm going to go in. I'm going to assess the vibes. You don't have to say much. Just like introduce yourself. And if the vibes are good and I don't see any harm, I'm going to give you a signal, and then you're going to pretend to take a call outside and walk away. So that was our whole game plan. So anyways, we go, he dresses up, like plays the part perfectly.
Impersonating a realtor.
Impersonating a realtor.
Or no, not just a realtor, a broker.
A broker, yeah. Absolutely.
Imagine
Just
someone impersonating me,
everything that could go wrong. Yeah, everything that could go wrong was about to happen. We go in, I meet this guy, he has his ID, everything. He turns out to be a pretty normal guy. Like he just maybe had some reservations about like online and had his own way of operating, but I didn't see any red flags. Like everything he was looking for was legit. So I gave my friend the signal. I'm like, okay, I'm good. Like I can take it from here. So he leaves. He pretends to take the phone call. And I have the meeting with the guy. It's great. Like we get along well. Like there's a potential, opportunity here to work together. After the meeting, I step out. I had a call like that I was on the phone. I had a different business call. And my friend called in to check up to ask if I was okay. Because I was on the phone, I like put my phone on, like I just ended the call or just went straight to voicemail and didn't really think anything of it. Like I waited outside, just waited for him to meet me after. And I'm like waiting in the lobby and I see him running down. He's like sweating. He's in a panic. I'm like, what happened? He's like, I thought something happened to you. So I like broke back into the loft and was like looking for you, being like, where is she? Like thought something happened.
Oh man.
And apparently this poor man was just like,
shocked.
She just left. Like,
Yeah. So the seller or
the seller's like,
what's happening? Like what's going on? Yeah.
So after, I spoke with the seller and like he was the one that told me, he's like, yeah, your friend thought something bad happened. Like I didn't know like what to expect. I was in shock. I was just sitting in my kitchen eating protein.
Yeah.
So anyways, funny enough, that whole situation was like good character building and good relationship building. Like we laughed about it. It was fine. And, we still got a deal like going at the end of the day. So it was a happy story. It's just funny how the twists and turns got there. And like sometimes, yeah, you got to be careful for red flags. But if you are going to take a risk, just have a bit of a backup plan.
I like that.
I would say is my takeaway.
I like that. As we reach the end of the podcast, I want to ask you a couple of quick questions for our audience and for our viewers all together. Knowing everything you know now, what would Kristina tell the younger Kristina today? I
would say what I would tell myself is to, no matter what age and no matter what experience you have under your belt, always maintain a student mentality. I think there's always more people to learn from. There's no point in life where you've, in my opinion, have figured everything out. I think there's always people that can bring more value and more education and knowledge into your life. So to always have an open mind and student mentality kind of increase your value as a person and to continue doing that no matter what stage you're in.
I like that. The last question I'd like to end off this podcast with, who is Kristina?
Who am I? I mean, I'm just a normal girl. Like, I'm a normal real estate agent. I like to, all the fun, like, girly things. I love to cook. I love traveling. Yeah, taking care of myself, going to the gym. That's usually what my day looks like. I mean, pretty normal girl.
Everyday things.
Everyday things, yeah.
Thank you for being a guest on our show today. You shared some insightful tips and tricks for our listeners and audience members, and of course, some great stories that you shared as well. I'd like to thank you for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for listening. We have Kristina herself. Follow her on Instagram if you don't already. Stay tuned for the next episode.